Hey everybody, I am Garrett Fuller with MMORPG.com. I am sitting with the man of the hour, Brian Wheeler. Brian's probably, for everybody about to play Elder Scrolls Online, Brian is one of the most important people you need to know.
No pressure.
Yeah, no pressure. The reason is because Brian is designing the AvA/PvP systems in the game. He's professional, he's been doing it forever, way back when, Mythic, Dark Age Camelot, old school. Brian knows this stuff better than anybody. From what I've heard today, and Nick and I were talking about it before, why don't you tell us a little bit about the internal AvA testing you've been doing?
Those fun times.
The violent fist fights.
Yeah, we go at it.
I know. But go ahead, tell everybody how you've been testing this.
So we have several fights a week, or tests a week, where it's a combination of gameplay, which is Nick's team with us from PvP, and testers, as well as a mixture of various other people around the company, artists, content developers that handle our PvE zones. We pull in everybody. And then we have small scale fights and large scale fights. The small scale fights, we pretty much just focus around handling what are the second to second or minute to minute fights with classes, where we do a lot of class tuning. Then we have the large scale fights, where we handle a lot of the siege damage versus players, siege damage versus keeps. Did the keeps layout work okay? And just kind of those crazy extra. There's another stage where we involve the whole company, and have we pretty much opened up Cyrodiil and say, go at it. There are those fights which occur all the time, and every week they yield great results that make me happy, seeing the fact that I always see the small groups doing the small objectives, the large groups hammering on keeps, and then just people start to congregate and then push away, and it just flows very well.
I think it's amazing to watch, right? It's a whole system that you gotta, I mean, I know it's not easy to balance, but you know, it sounds like the level of testing and the intensity you're doing is really a big deal. We talked a lot, and I wrote, well, I should say Bill wrote the column last week, but we were kicking ideas back and forth, and then you told me, you know, somebody sent you the article about, you know, how to make PvP interesting, and I think it's cool that we're all on the same idea framework. But from your experience, like, what are some of the key points to the AvA system for you specifically that really make it interesting as you're going through it as a player?
It's a combination of the system mixed in with the zone that make it interesting. Number one, you can go deep in enemy territory and you're not confined to only fighting a specific keep or a specific resource. You can go deep and cut off an enemy transit line and affect the war immediately, even as a group of just 4 people. There are the large fights that I like participating in. There's a bunch of bottlenecks between each of the alliance's territory. We split Cyrodiil up basically into 3 subsections that each alliance owns by default. And in between those, we have several bottlenecks. So there's some things for the stealthers to do.
We always talk about that.
Like this again, considering everybody can sneak, everybody can use a bow. I'm quite happy about that. So we have the bottleneck fights. There's also just the PvE content we have out there. That's one of those important things to make sure that people still feel like it's Cyrodiil. We have Coral, we have Cheydinhal, Bruma. We have some towns in the south that in Oblivion, they're smaller settlements, but in our timeline, 700 years ago, or more, a little bit more, those towns are a little bit more developed. Cropsford, for example, is kind of like a little farming community. And it's full of NPCs to talk to, full of NPCs to take quests from, but that's also a place for the PvPers to find people doing quests. So you can jump them and killing quests. So it's not just the system which makes people engage each other directly. It's that indirect engagement where, well, I want to go to Bruma and see if anybody's doing those quests because I'm going to kill them. I want to go to a bottleneck, which isn't necessarily a keep on the transit network, but it's in between some keeps. I want to camp that to try and kill anybody coming into enemy territory.
Yeah, I think what's great about that is I think you need a living place to PvP. It shouldn't just be a battle arena. As much as I've played battle arenas plenty of times in other games, I still feel like it's this, you know, when there's a living zone, especially the type that you're building with a war and the factions fighting over it, it helps to have those elements to it. So
Yeah,
that's
sure.
super cool. I mean, and some of the best fights break out when you're going over to do a quest and all of a sudden
And
it
just
explodes,
the little map pit lights up that somebody got killed, and then somebody runs to that and finds the person that killed that person.
Yeah.
And then it just swells into a bigger fight, and then considering you can set up siege weaponry anywhere, you just start setting that stuff up and just firing back and forth at each other. It's great that there can just be, like, for lack of a better way to put it, a bloom fight that just pops up out of nowhere, and you're like, where did that come from? In the last huge fight we did, we were fighting people, basically trailing somebody from all the way in the Daggerfall portion of the zone into the Altmary portion of the zone, way south, and then they got inside their keep and were hidden. So we were like, well, crap, let's just fight each other now. And it was just this huge fight, not at a keep, not at a farm, just this massive field battle occurring.
Yeah.
And everybody was like, oh my god, that was insane.
Yeah, we always talk about the importance of field battles, especially from the old days in DAOC, the times there was a whole time when field fighting became a really big deal.
Yeah, field fighting, what's great about that is that lends great to the machinima videos, where people go out there and be like, look how badass my group of four or guild is. We just go out and we just rail into people. Open field fighting is very important because you can't just always have things concentrated directly at keeps all the time or directly at resources all the time.
No, it's true. It's true. One of the interesting things that's on everyone's mind, and I talked to Nick about this too, is the PvP builds that you guys are working with internally. And I said, I'm sitting there trying to play, and all I hear is you guys behind me going, "What'd you do with this? What'd you do with that?" And now, I don't want to play. I want to hear about that because that's what these guys want to hear about. So that's something interesting. Now you're starting to see the characters really come into play on what works best.
Yeah, after every test, small, big, medium, there's people yapping about what build they did. I started to settle into a sorcerer with heavy and light armor, using various abilities that are pretty much, I'm a slow ramp up, but once I get you damaged, I'm pretty much killing you. So there's combination,
fury.
Right, but there's people that have other abilities that pretty much rip me down in the very quickly, so I need to get away from them so I can build up my damage. That's just one example of some of the conversation that happens, but it's all the time.
Yeah, no, that's what we said. We said there's so many different options and so many different cool things. We were nervous from our side, looking at trying to guesstimate what you guys were working on and about like the armor levels and how those balance out and everything like that. And it seems like you guys have worked it out pretty well.
There's testing that we do not only in PvP but also in PvE that we'll catch things in one environment that we won't catch in another. Like a certain combination of abilities works great in PvE, but in Keep Siege, not so much. So the combat team, Nick and Ed and Maria, they'll go through and actually start tweaking out some various numbers that they go, all right, well, that was great in PvE, but we can't have people stunned for the 30 seconds or anything like that. So they tone it down and make it work for both environments.
Cool. So overall, what's your I mean, you've been testing a lot. Are you? Everybody else has been saying you want players now. You want the beta. You want the testers in to really kind of go into the system. So is that something you're looking forward to in the next couple of months?
When we start getting PvP testing in, that's going to be really awesome. I mean, I see the behaviors that I'm happy with the small scale and the large and the medium fights that we have internally. But I really want to see what happens when we open it up and say, all right, players, the Cyrodiil is your oyster. Go crazy. And I love watching. We have metrics internally that let us see where kills occur. So we kind of have like a heat map, so to speak, where we can watch where fights move over the course of a day, over the course of a week or two. So we can actually watch what happens. And when we open up the gate and we say, all right, go in there and start killing each other over the course of a couple days, that's going to be awesome to see.
That's incredible. I can't wait.
So,
it's awesome. Brian, thanks so much for taking time. We love it. Brian Wheeler, I'm telling you, the guy who's going to, you're going to be PvPing one night.
And I'm going to come around.
Yeah, that's it.
You're probably going to kill me, but...
Well, it's that ramp up, right?
I'll get you back.
So I know. There's a lot of people, like I said, you mentioned choke points, and we were talking earlier about the stealth teams in the old school games and sitting around choke points.
They're back.
It's fantastic. It's going to make for some really good stuff. So thanks for watching, guys. We can't thank Brian enough, and Elder Scrolls Online soon, hopefully sooner. The more we see it, the faster we want it to come out. So you'll definitely be able. Hopefully, you guys will be at PAX East and you'll be able to check it out. Take care.